Biosecurity has become a big issue in particular since the election with the outbreak of foot and mouth disease in Indonesia and the prospect of that coming to Australia. Labor outlined its plan on that yesterday via the Minister Murray Watt. Joining me now in the studio to respond, the Nationals leader and Shadow Agriculture Minister David Littleproud. Thanks for your time. So you've said part of your response is nothing new here from what the coalition were doing. The Minister seems pretty upfront. He says this plan's been worked on for a year. It was finalised after the election. So yeah, he didn't junk all of that. He's picked it up. Isn't that a good thing?
Well, it is a good thing and we welcome it. It's just masking the fact that he's been rife with indecision in dealing with this crisis from the moment it started. And that big moment came when it spread to Bali. That changed the risk profile overnight because the sheer number of people that come through our borders and the fact that he took 4 weeks to even make the determination to close away the vulnerability of foot and mouth disease coming in the bottom of someone's boot because a detector dog cannot pick it up. He took 4 weeks to make a decision about those mats, about those disinfectant mats, shows that he was indecisive. In fact, he said it was absolute crap. He's made no new announcements of anything other than what were coalition budget announcements.
That's not quite true. So there's 10 million to Indonesia more.
Well, I'll get to that. So that money's all in the budget. That was part of the $560 million that was put in the last budget. And we welcome the fact that he's spending this and he should have spent this. The only new measure that Murray Watt's put out is the 1 million vaccines that he's given to Indonesia. And he did that a month ago, and he hasn't put one of those into one beast in Indonesia. That's a frightening prospect.
Yesterday.
Again, that'll come out of the budget, the 560
Sure, but you
million.
said nothing announced. This has been announced.
No, nothing new, Tom, is what I'm saying. The only thing new has been the 1 million vaccines that he was offering is taken out of a fridge of our stockpile that we've got in London. They're still sitting in a fridge. He still hasn't put one of those into a beast. Now, I would have thought, Tom, after COVID-19 and the hoopla that Labor went on with about vaccination rates, that Murray Watt might have been at the fore of making sure that those vaccines were out of a fridge and sitting in a beast in Indonesia. And the fact he hasn't done that is a failure. A month after he's made that announcement, he's failed on the mats. He told it was a crap idea. It took him 4 weeks to come to that conclusion that he now needed. He's failed to actually close off the people bringing in food product. Only last week...
We'll get on that in a moment. Just on no new announcements though. Just yesterday he spoke about $10 million to Indonesia to help this particular outbreak. That was a new announcement.
From the budget, from budget money, we're saying there's not...
budget money's fine, but it's what you're doing with it. This was a new... This is
coming anyway.
On foot and mouth.
Same with 18 biosecurity officers. They were already in the budget being put in place. The dogs were being put in place.
But there's no way we already had 10 million for...
We had that in place. We had that in place.
Specifically for foot and mouth disease.
No, as part of your biosecurity spending, you put money in the budget to be able to put into in-country responses to be able to help them so that it doesn't get here.
Okay, so you're saying the money was allocated, but he said, here's what we're going to do with it, essentially.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. The 1 million vaccines is his big idea, and he can't put one of them in a beast.
Does the coalition still want to ban all people coming from Indonesia?
No, that's never been our position. No, with respect, Tom, the position has been, the last briefing we got from the Chief Veterinary Officer was that the curve was going up, not down. And we asked the government around where is that threshold point in which if the curve keeps going up, that stronger border security measures would be required. And the only people that get that advice from the department is the government. The department wouldn't give it to the opposition, and that's right. But what we said is, you need to tell us where that threshold point.
Some in the coalition have said a ban should happen. It hasn't been.
But it's not been the position of me as the opposition spokesman.
What about banning all food? It seems a bit draconian.
No, Tom, again, you've got to get to the details of this. Banning people bringing food in on them or in their bags. Only last week you saw the fact that we intercepted someone with Hungry Jack's or McDonald's on there.
So it was we don't give free plugs usually. It was a McMuffin or two. Okay, I'm not sure why you'd take it all.
But again, Tom, so that's where a big risk profile comes.
So you wanted them banned from the country for 3 years?
No, Tom. So again, you've got to understand the detail of this. So what we're saying is that if you ban people bringing food product from Indonesia to Australia on them or in their bags, it makes it easier for biosecurity officers at the border. If they are carrying that and they've breached our biosecurity orders, there's on-the-spot fines that we've lifted to $2,664.
Which this person was fined.
You've got to let me answer, because this is detailed, Tom.
Sure.
Verbally doesn't get to the actually heart of the science of what actually happens.
That person was fined.
So they should be fined. If they're a foreign national and we've made it clear that you can't bring food and you've breached our biosecurity orders, you can ban these people from coming back to this country for 3 years. If you make that very clear, and in fact, when we were in government, when I introduced those new penalties, we actually banned 15 people from this country. We sent them back on the plane they came and said they're not welcome for 3 years. Such is the seriousness of biosecurity.
What was it an example of someone, what they did to get that ban? Because
they didn't declare.
You wouldn't do it every single time anyone brought any food.
Firstly, they didn't declare. They tried to actually circumvent the process and tried not to be detected, so there was malice in terms of what they were trying to do. And our biosecurity officers are trained to be able to make those.
Is there an example you can give of what happened without a name?
Again, people bringing in large quantities of food product, not declared meat products, that they were trying to conceal within their bags.
So something deliberately wrapped to try to circumvent security. So this example, the man with the McMuffin wouldn't fit into that category.
Well, he would be fine, but there is a scale of penalties that are provided. But what it makes easier is just
to ask you, that sort of thing, which clearly isn't some sort of importing business, the McMuffin situation would be a fine rather than
exactly. But there are scales, Tom. But what makes it easier? What makes it easier for detection? If all food from Indonesia, from passengers carrying on them or in their bags, is implemented, it just makes it easier. So there is a clear delineation for our biosecurity officers, also for our travellers. So they know the stakes as soon as they get on that plane. If they're carrying any food at all, they're going to either get sent home or they're going to pay a penalty. So that's a very clear message. For
an Australian who just forgets they had a pack of crackers in their bag, would they expect to be fined?
Yes, bad luck.
$2,000?
So you're going to risk an $80 billion industry because someone just forgets. I'm sorry, you need to send strong messages.
There's no risk. The point is, there's no risk from a pack of crackers.
Well, it depends what's on it, Tom. And this is the thing is where you give clear.
That's what I'm saying.
Tom, you and I are going to deviate on your belief here. I've run a biosecurity system, and I can tell you, when you are in times of crisis, you send very strong messages to those people that are coming to this country that we are taking it serious. And the only way to do that is to give punitive messages through penalties, either through fines or sending them back. And they are scaled. And so they are scaled for a reason.
Tough for
well, so is $80 billion worth of people's livelihoods, Tom. That's just as much as.
Do you think Australians think that's the right approach?
Well,
something that.
That's what I believe was the best way to make sure we keep our borders safe. It's not a permanent measure. It's a temporary measure to make sure that we get this right and we actually protect ourselves. Because Murray Watt, even yesterday, couldn't give us a clear picture of whether it's under control or not in Indonesia. There needs to be transparency so we know exactly where we are. And that's where you ramp up and down your measures, not only in Indonesia, but here in Australia.
Couple of quick ones before we go. The Jobs Summit, Peter Dutton won't go. Will you go as Nationals leader?
Well, I haven't been invited.
Would you go if you were invited?
Well, I mean, I've actually written to the Prime Minister about having a National Energy Summit and he rejected that. Unfortunately, he didn't invite me to this. I have real concerns about what the Labor Party is doing to regional rulers.
Well, why not go then? Be a voice in the room.
Well, if you let me answer the question, what normally happens in an interview, Tom, is you ask the questions, I get the opportunity to answer them. So I have real issues about what's happening to regional rural Australia, and particularly the ag sector, what they've done with the ag visa. And so I think there needs to be a strong regional rural voice at that forum. Now, the Prime Minister not only turned down my offer to be constructive around a national energy forum, he hasn't invited me to this, so I'll leave that with the Prime Minister.
Okay, so if he did invite you, you'd go?
Yes. I think regional rural Australia needs a strong voice. And it's not being heard by this government. We're the forgotten Australians. And I think it's time that they understand the importance of regional Australia, particularly in agriculture. They've canned an ag visa. They've got absolutely no idea what they're going to fill it with.
Well, there you go. We'll see if the invite happens. We always like to bring people together on Sky News. Just finally, John Barilaro, did he ever canvass you about a job post his state political career?
No.
No?
No.
No conversations with him at all?
No.
When was the last time you chatted to him? He once spoke about a federal tilt. Any conversations there?
No. John and I weren't on great speaking terms, but always civil when we did speak to one another.
David Littleproud, Nationals leader. Hope I gave you enough time for some responses. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, mate. Anytime.